You're listening to the PR Wind Down Podcast, the show for public relations professionals who are ready to see real change in the PR industry. We are your hosts, April White and Laura Schooler. Let's get ready to wind down. What's new in the world of Laura Schooler?
I don't know, a lot, nothing. It's so hot here. It's crazy. I turned off the fan that's on my desk so that it wouldn't impede in the audio of our
and now you're sweating.
As a result, I'm melting because my air conditioner is around the corner in the living room, so it doesn't really get here.
Shoot. What did you do last weekend? What did you do last weekend?
Last weekend? Oh,
yeah.
Right. Last weekend, I spent hours and hours on my computer trying to figure out how to move my website and my email and my domain. There's so much that goes into it. You know, like moving stuff and making sure it doesn't get lost. So I'm having technical anxiety, professional technical anxiety. That's what I've been focused on.
Okay.
So that's what I did before I then zoomed down to the beach. And,
what'd you do at the beach?
You know, things that you do at the beach. Go on the beach.
Okay. All right. You're full of stories today.
Ate food, drank some alcohol.
I mean, that sounds fun. That sounds lovely.
Yeah.
That's way more interesting than your technical horror story.
I know. It's just all consuming.
I understand. All right. Well, I mean, should we kick things off officially with the horror story?
Today's horror story comes to us from somebody who lived through a PR horror. Hi, April and Laura. Here is what I need to know. Am I being taken advantage of / overworked? I am a 2022 grad with a PR and marketing degree, and I did a few internships in college. Right now, I'm working at an in-house job in the marketing and PR team of a Series C startup. There are about 35 people at the company. In my role, where I make about $36,000 salary, I'm responsible for our PR, media outreach, and questions from journalists sometimes, advertising on social media and Google ads, social media and blog content, occasional events. Sometimes we host online and in-person boot camps, etc., to show customers how to use our sales software, graphic design, etc. There are other things that I have not been trained on yet because my capacity is already maxed out. The work keeps piling on the longer I am here, about a year so far. I am getting pretty overwhelmed. I have so many tasks in each of those areas, and my manager is not very flexible about deadlines. When I tell him I am struggling, he says, "Welcome to software and a salary." I don't have a real mentor, and I just get feedback from my manager when I mess something up, even when I ask for more details, because he also oversees sales and doesn't have time for me, I don't think. We had a CMO, but he left, and the company is looking for a new one. I don't want to be ungrateful for this job, but I already feel like I am burning out. I don't mind working hard, but this feels like a lot of work for my pay and the amount of time in a day. But other people have told me that agencies are like this too, or worse. I thought in-house was supposed to be more stable. I work late all the time. I don't have time to work out or do any hobbies I enjoy. Am I being crazy? That sucks.
That does suck.
I mean, I guess we've all been there.
We've all been there. It is unusual that in-house is that crazy. Wait, what was the industry that the person said they work in? Yeah, that makes more sense. If it's a startup.
A Series C startup, yeah.
Yeah, then it makes sense. I mean, I don't know anybody who works for a startup that isn't working
12-hour days.
Doing like 5 people's jobs. Yeah.
And working on the weekends, and especially in tech, right? I mean, I know I had a startup and I refuse to let anybody but me do that. There's a reason why they tell you can't do that.
Wait, explain.
Because you burn out.
There's no like magic wand that can change your fortune overnight. Well, maybe there is, but that's like probably not worth putting all of your hopes and dreams in the magic wand. And I know there's people who would disagree with that, but I'm not going to go say, oh, just envision what you want and tomorrow you will wake up and you will have it. I'm going to tell you instead that the economy, particularly for like the broad marketing industry, is nuts right now. It's so hard to get a job. I read on LinkedIn all day, every day, people freaking out. People have applied to 1,000 jobs and had 8 interviews and gotten rejected or heard nothing back from any. I read it every day. I'm not even exaggerating when I give these numbers.
In our industry or every industry?
Well, it's PR, I guess, mostly, because that's probably what comes up on my feed. But I think marketing more broadly. So the days of just like ditching your job, these are not those days.
No, we've talked about that. I do think what could be interesting for this person to think about, if there's a way for this person to fuel additional funding or whatever it is the company needs to scale, once they have more revenue, then this person, if they played a key role in that, will have a lot more leverage to come back and say, hey, now that we're 20% bigger, could we hire somebody to do this part of my job? And then I can step up and do this and manage that person. So I do think that that's probably your most strategic play at this point, aside from just waiting around until the dust settles on whatever the hell is actually happening with the economy, which seems to be anybody's guess right now. I don't envision anything stabilizing dramatically until next year, especially because of the election.
Yeah.
Which is becoming even more volatile with every passing week, it seems.
I think the other thing that's hard to do, and I was probably not that good at it when I was younger and when I felt overworked, is really try to learn everything that you can while you're there and being piled upon.
Yeah.
If you're doing PR and social media and advertising and all these things, you will be so marketable and you can pivot in so many different directions.
And or decide which pieces of it you really want to
you like the best, right? So your next job, you can be more focused on what you want to do and not just be, the every person. And maybe you put an end date to yourself too, but don't do it this year. Don't make the end date.
Yeah, I don't think this is the year. I mean, if there's a way to reclaim some of your time just so you don't burn out and you're doing other things to give yourself more balance, then I would definitely say prioritize that wherever you possibly can, and make that time count. So like, if you're going out with friends that it's not the most fulfilling to you, maybe stay home and watch the movie that's going to fill your cup, or stay home and write the song, or whatever, whatever floats your boat, right? Back to the other point, our producer Veronica just found that there's an article in Business Insider that someone said, I applied for 493 jobs since I got laid off a year ago, and getting a remote job has become so hard. 493 jobs in a year.
So I think the election and interest rates, those things have to be resolved before there's going to be any tangible movement.
Yeah, I agree. It's crazy out there. But definitely wherever you can start thinking creatively about where can you, for example, do, I don't know, lifts, get some hand weights for your house. And if you have 2 minutes in between a call, do like some bicep
Right.
curls, whatever it is that you know what
Right.
I don't,
Do
I mean,
10
that's not,
do 10
it's like,
squats every hour or
or
whatever,
do, you
yeah.
do a 2-minute plank or whatever, like whatever it is, because it is important to be able to, take care of
Mhm.
yourself and
Yeah.
prioritize yourself. But if time isn't the solution, then maybe multitasking, or like you're maximizing your drive time and you're doing whatever it is that fills your cup, listening to podcasts, singing to music, talking to your favorite friends, whatever, I think, yeah, when things get that insane, I think micro edits, that could make a bigger difference.
Right. And just trying to change your mindset and with the understanding that this isn't forever,
Yeah.
but you basically have a full-time job and you're going to school full-time at the same time.
Yeah.
And you're going to be way better for it. But maybe put a deadline, maybe put a year, on it.
I would do something like that just to make sure you don't accidentally just keep doing it until you can't literally physically do it anymore.
Right. Right. And then you've harmed yourself. I was reading something the other day that said they think that there's some evidence, and maybe you'll say, duh, of course this is true, that people who have lived through high stress periods because of trauma or whatever reason that has really affected their physical existence, cortisol comes into play, and it seems that those people are more susceptible to getting various cancers later in
Yes.
life. So you really have to watch. I wish I knew that because I'm sure
No,
nobody
I
told
mean,
you, told you
yeah,
this stuff in the 80s and 90s, like, or 2000 and 2000s even.
yeah,
Yeah, it's not a joke. It's true. Take care
yeah,
of yourself.
yes. That's the moral of the story.
Right. So, but that's why you have to put a deadline on it, because taking care of yourself doesn't mean throw everything out the window and say I'm free, because then you'll be stressed with not having a job, not having money, not knowing what you're doing. So
Yeah,
when
no,
people
that'll
say,
make it
"Oh,
worse.
just throw
That
it
will
out the
for sure
window,"
make it worse. No,
right? That's right now. That's
no,
not a
it's not on the
viable.
table. Or I mean, look for a job behind the scenes,
Yeah,
of course,
but
but
it's so hard. It's so hard right now. I'm telling you, don't
just
think that you're going to get a job and you're going to start it in 2 weeks, because it's just not going to happen. It's not. It's not easy out there at the
it
moment,
is not.
unless
It's
you're,
not.
I don't know, and maybe in finance, but you're not. You're in PR, so
Well, Laura, it looks like our guest is here. Should I let this chit chat come to an end and let him in?
yes, I suppose we should interview our guest.
All right, so our guest today is Eriksen Dickens. He is an award-winning filmmaker, actor, and the co-founder of Platinum Peak Inc. video agency. He's here today to discuss the practical uses of video production for business leaders, and then how documentary film can be applied to brand building for positioning entrepreneurs. So welcome, Eriksen.
Hey, April, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's exciting. This is a part of like parallel to PR that we actually have never talked about on the podcast.
Okay.
So when we got your note, we were like, actually, this is interesting because there is a lot to be said for the power of video when it comes to, brand building, and especially if somebody's got, social media going, even if they don't, what can you use it for in your press materials and your press kit, things like that, right? So what are some of the things that really make for a compelling video when you're assembling it, especially as a PR practitioner who might be needing to tell your client, okay, we're going to need these kinds of things. These are the elements we need. These are the, I don't know if it's storytelling. I don't know if it's specific visuals. I don't know if it's somebody comfortable on camera. Like, what are some of the things that are the key ingredients to making a video really powerful?
I think the number one thing that's kind of universal amongst videos is positioning yourself as the solution to your audience's problem. You're the gatekeeper to making their life better, whether you're pitching a product or a service, building credibility without being too salesy and too pushy. Oftentimes, implementing stories, anecdotes from your life as well. Stories have been around since the beginning of time. They're like the kind of a universal language, and a lot of studies have been done about how stories, telling information in the form of a story helps people retain it better. There's a lot of research that have been done on that. So we always try to, when we're communicating information in videos, to try to put it in the form of a story. Like people are more apt to remember certain statistics, for example, if it's more so in the form of a story. Emotion. I mean, we are emotional beings, humans,
Mm-hmm.
rational as well, but oftentimes we make choices dictated on emotion. And so implementing emotion without being overly sentimental is something that we strive to
Mm-hmm.
do well, with the heartstrings going. And then I would say adversity, conflict, being open about the conflict and adversity that you have faced, because therefore your target audience will be able to relate to you more, and
Mm-hmm.
so you will help build trust, and trust eventually leads to conversions or whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm.
So we're always big on that when we're working with clients. For example, if they have certain stories about their lives, how they got into doing what they're doing, what were the pain points in their past that caused them to go down this road, and being vulnerable and sharing that, and how they approached that and came out on the other end. Um,
Mm-hmm.
those are a few. Those are a few of our. I don't necessarily want to say secrets because they're not that secretive, but they work for us in terms of that.
And then in terms of where this differs from what everybody's now seeing with social media videos, where are the points of intersection and where are the points of departure when it comes to the kind of video production you're talking about, and what we're seeing an awful lot of in today's day and age?
No, social media has almost completely caused videos in general to shift. I mean, people really don't have the attention spans anymore like they used to, in terms of
Yeah.
even like a 3 to 5 minute video. Sometimes you're asking a lot from someone to do that. And so content in general in video has been, it's becoming increasingly popular to do short form videos, and you can still do story driven videos, but in shorter deliverables. Like for example, sometimes in the past, a client wants a story driven documentary about their company, about their brand. But instead of like a 30-minute documentary, they want 31-minute deliverables that they can drip out over social media. They can run ad campaigns with those, overcome objections with those, offer value with that. Um,
Mm.
it's just it is becoming increasingly popular. So it's kind of just rolling with the times, right? Like, just if you want
Yeah.
information out there, the chances of somebody watching a 3 to 5 minute video are pretty slim, unless it's a banger video, which
What length is appropriate for a business leader or for a documentary in today's day and age, given that if a company is looking at producing one?
We've had clients in the past who they wanted the full shebang, 2 hour long film, very robust, but they wanted that more so to preserve their legacy, keep it more internally, share it with future generations. So we found that the clients who are more interested with that types of films, generally they want them longer because they're more apt to actually watch it. Whereas if somebody wants a documentary about their company, their business, their achievements and whatnot, and they want to actually leverage it more externally, say maybe partnership attraction, maybe recruitment purposes, it kind of depends on it case by case. Generally, I would say about no more than 5 to 10 minutes. I mean, if you want to share it externally, you don't want to skimp to where you don't cover anything really. But
Hmm.
you gotta always be mindful of who your target audience is and how apt they are to actually watch this.
Do you have an example, if you can't talk about a specific company or executive, an industry?
Yeah, in terms of the documentaries.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So we did one, the Bay Area is for an engineering company, and they wanted to not only utilize the documentary for preservation of what they've done and what they've achieved and contributed, but they wanted to use short form content to be able to educate their engineers and to be able to engineers that they might be hiring. And so we created a series of videos that were almost a bit like tutorials while still intertwining like their story into it and what made them different. That's one example that we were able to do for a client.
I mean, when I think documentaries, I think, I don't know, Ken Burns, right? And he's got his 9 hours of baseball documentaries. So how do you compare, what you guys are doing to that kind of documentary?
So our documentaries, these legacy documentaries, they're almost a little bit more like tributes. They're not quite as nuanced, obviously, because we're approaching a subject matter. They're paying us to do this, right? So
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, it's like it's kind of the story that they want told, and it's our job to align our work with their vision and craft it collaboratively. Just to be honest, like we were going to do a documentary once for this one client, and then we found out some less than ideal things about this company and how they did some stuff in the past, and so we decided to pass on that opportunity. But we just have to be kind of mindful of that because we don't want to.
Oh, right. So
Yeah.
they wanted to use you to get away from that.
They were a PR company, actually.
Oh,
Los Angeles, and they had a client that they wanted to do some rebranding for, and we went online and did diligence after.
bump the bad stuff down and the good stuff up, and that was
right.
Wow. And you guys were like, no, we don't want to engage in that with this particular client.
They got in a lot of trouble with some lawsuits. They were exploiting a vulnerable demographic, and we just didn't really feel too comfortable going down that path.
Right. Interesting.
Family foundations are big for us right now. We've worked with a couple family foundations. We're doing one. They're not a company, obviously, but we found that family foundations oftentimes have incredible stories in terms of what they've done, the fact that they've had obstacles they've gone through, and they've been able to kind of leverage these films to showcase to potential partners in terms of who they are, recruitment purposes as well, building a team around them. So it's just like I said, it really depends on the individual use case.
I think you should do one on me and April.
I'm not opposed. Let's talk. What do we got working?
Okay.
So how do you know when a story is best told through video? If you're a PR practitioner who's trying to imagine, what are there like some certain signs or tip-offs or to just have in your brain that you say, oh, this would actually be an easier story to tell visually?
Well, I'm biased because I feel like anything can be told via the medium of video and film.
Fair.
But I guess the three pillars of a company are sales, marketing, and their people operations. And so I feel like if there are problems within that company that align, it has to align with one of those three pillars, then it can be addressed. And it's the creative's job to then go to the drawing board and figure out how it can actually be done. The overall objective. You can't really go into making a video for somebody. And I'm talking about the agency side of things more so, less documentaries, but videos that are supposed to yield results. You can't really go in and make a video if you don't really know what the actual problem is that the company is facing. It's one thing just to make them a sexy, flashy montage they can put on their website, but if the video doesn't really have intention or purpose behind it, then they're not going to get any types of results, right? So
yeah, totally. Okay, last question. Well, second to last question, because we have our famous last question. So second to last question is, what films are you currently working on? Anything you can share?
Currently, we're about 3 months in the production for a foundation out of Texas. So we've gotten to go to Fort Worth, North Carolina, Austin, Texas as well, and film for this family foundation. It's just been a really cool family to get to know. The gentleman who started it years ago, he's since passed away, but he came from very humble beginnings in the rural South. He became a very successful businessman, and him and his wife, who is still alive, they have dedicated the last 25 years of building this foundation to helping others. And so it's just been really neat to be able to visit their partners and go on these site visits and follow the family around. And I've learned a lot from them as well, just what they've gone through and how they've embraced adversity. So we're doing a 2-hour film for them, and then also a 15-minute film that they can share more externally, the 2-hour film.
Oh, cool. That sounds really fun. Okay, and then the official last question. Is there anything that we didn't ask you that we should have, that you wanted to talk about? Or do you have any questions that you want to ask us?
Why did you guys start this podcast, and when? What is
Oh God, how long ago has it been? We partly started it because Laura and I became friends and colleagues. She was doing some work for us, and she started talking about her wild and crazy background, doing stand-up and doing a podcast herself and being bullpen Betty and being a TV personality. And I was like, wait a second, because I have a background doing acting and improv and like, you know, music. And I was like, we might be really funny on a podcast.
I
So
love it.
that was really it. It was like, why don't we do that? She's like, I don't know. I was like, let's do it. She's like, okay.
The match made
And
in
away we went. Yeah.
Nice.
In PR
Just sort of made sense. I don't know. We've won a couple of gold awards since, but yeah, our first episode was July 24th of 2020.
Oh, so almost 4 years. Oh, 4 years ago. Wow.
You're right in the heat of the pandemic, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was. So
Sure.
this Friday will be our 117th episode.
Oh yeah. All right. Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's hard. I feel like so many people start a podcast, but very few people actually do it long enough to where it actually becomes a thing. It's
Yeah,
hard
it
to-
becomes something.
Yep.
Apparently the average podcast only makes it to episode 3 and then not past
Wow.
that.
Well,
I feel like podcasting in general has become like a great vehicle for marketing because you can get the visual content. Like my brother and I started the podcast about a year and a half ago, and we're not as consistent as we used to be with it. But honestly, like the primary reason we started it was because it allowed us like those quick social media reels. We film it and make it look nice.
right.
And great for marketing or
Yeah.
communication. So I think it's a great asset for people to have when trying to market their business or themselves.
Yeah. Well, I know we've kept you way over and I apologize for that. I told you I wouldn't. And then here we are. But where can people find you and your agency before you leave? So everyone knows where to follow up.
Yeah, so you can check us out on our website, platinumpeak.com. Peak is with 2 E's, and that's going to be more of our agency side of stuff. So brand videos, advertisements, recruitment stuff, that type of content. And then if you're more interested in learning a bit more about the documentaries, you can find us at dickensbrothers.com.
I have one more quick question.
Yes.
It's just
Are you
so
related-
unconventional.
Are you related to Charles?
I like to tell people that I am. However, I have no clue. I like
You should go on the Do You Know Who You Are or whatever that show is. Right?
Ancestry.com.
Yeah.
Right, or that, right.
I know I
That's
did
funny.
have family from England years ago, way down the line somewhere. And hey, he was a creative and a writer, and I like to think I'm relatively creative. So you know what? Why not just say that I am?
All right.
I mean, I think you should. There's a girl in my acting class who tells everybody that she's like a distant cousin of Marilyn Monroe, which apparently is true. But every time she slates for anything, like for any showcase, it's like, this is my name.
And
And fun
April's
fact
brother
about
is-
me.
Are you serious?
April's brother is Jack White. All right.
Not true. Anyway,
All right. Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
yeah, likewise.
Welcome.
Okay. Thank you so much for tuning into the PR Wind Down podcast.
And thank you to Eriksen for joining us for a really great interview.
Remember to submit your own agency stories and questions and share our show with your friends and colleagues. If you subscribe and also leave us a rating, it will help us reach new listeners like you. We
Can't wait to wind down
with
again
you again next time. I don't think it was terrible.
It was bad.
I think it was bad, but not terrible.